Hi folks, welcome to your latest planning outlook, this updated on Tuesday the 15th of September. And it's generally good news in the forecast, with high pressure becoming established across the northern part of the British Isles to give essentially dry conditions, fair conditions for a good few days ahead, likely onwards into the early part of next week. Some difficulties with low cloud just toppling around that high from day to day, and a nagging easterly wind which will affect England and Wales at times. We start things off with Wednesday, the high centred toward the north, a weakening front slipping southwards across Britain. It's a cold front, not really much more than a zone of cloud, really, a few spits and spots of rain and drizzle for a time. That cloud most persistent and lowest across the eastern side of the Pennines, the Cheviots, Scottish borders, and for a time early on across the Highlands, although that cloud across much of the Highlands breaking up as the day goes on, and very little of it around the west and northwestern coasts, with some sunshine pretty widely here. Light winds for many places, particularly across Scotland, but that east by northeasterly may be rather gusty at times across northern England and into Wales, particularly by the afternoon. For Thursday, high pressure stays in charge, the centre of the high just shuffling slightly eastwards but dominating across the British Isles overall. We've got the strongest of an easterly breeze across the south of England and Wales, most of the mountain areas then seeing light winds through the day on Thursday. And with that remnant front just clearing away southwestwards, things are pretty clear, apart from a few early banks of low cloud and low level fog. Most of the hills and mountains clear through the course of the day. Temperatures then on the cool side across eastern areas, lifting to their highest across more western parts. Just a somewhat stronger south-southwesterly wind around the far northwest of Scotland, and maybe just some increasing cloud here as fronts out over the Atlantic begin to encroach towards the far northwest coast late in the day on Thursday. Now that front is just going to infiltrate the area of high pressure that still prevails across Britain by Friday, and it produces a nuisance of low cloud and some dregs of patchy rain and drizzle across these far north and northwestern parts of Scotland, maybe just encroaching further inland here toward the Great Glen as Friday daytime goes on. Ahead of that, very little in the way of low cloud, some early low-level fog patches around the glens and some low-level fog perhaps across parts of northern England as well. We've got an easterly breeze that stays brisk across Wales and the South Pennines, if anything just strengthening as the day is going on, increasingly gusty locally around some of the higher ridges and in places through some passes to lower slopes as well. Temperatures then on pleasantly warm side for most places, but cooler in northwest Scotland. Now what's left of that front has decayed away, so it's not even identifiable as a front by the time we get through into Saturday, but the leftovers of its moisture just around the North Sea being dragged in on an east by northeasterly wind could just again be a nuisance, particularly across some of these more eastern districts, across the Pennines, the Cheviots and the borders, maybe just the southeast of the Highlands too, with that feed coming off the North Sea with some damp air, the risk of some hill fog just being stubborn. It may well break up as the day goes on, lifting onto higher slopes, but it could just linger through the day in some of these eastern areas. Further west, chances are that fog almost non-existent, just a few patches maybe clipping some higher tops. Much of the Scottish Highlands then away from that low cloud. There could well be some fog in the glens early on, and if there is any low cloud around at all underneath the centre of the high with an inversion trying to set itself up, chances are the highest tops would be above any of the lower level fog anyway. The easterly breeze though, again a notable feature across England and Wales particularly, with a brisk gusty easterly, and the strongest of the winds not necessarily on the very highest tops, again being forced through some of the passes and into some of the valleys. A similar easterly wind continues across Wales and perhaps the South Pennines into Sunday. Further north, beneath the centre of high pressure, winds are very light, and it's a dry, bright day in prospect for many. Previous low cloud mostly breaking up or just being confined to very low-level fog early in the morning, and the hills being generally clear all the way through. The front, which lies towards the far south, shouldn't be interfering with things, with any rain most likely confined away toward the far south of England. The air then pretty clear, excellent visibility on the hills. All in all, an increasingly good weekend. Temperatures pleasant by day on the hills, a little bit chilly overnight, particularly in the valleys and the glens. Touch of frost may be possible in a few prone spots in the Highlands, possibly northern England as well. All pretty typical fare for the middle of September. Looking at the big picture as we head onwards, and the high is still a dominant feature. This just running through the sequence over the weekend. Low pressure is around Biscay. We've got the remnants of an Atlantic hurricane somewhere well out over the Atlantic. That's not immediately going to interfere with us. The high most likely hanging on as we go onwards for a day or so into next week. I suggest there's some changes starting to develop, although the modelling needs to be watched with good caution at this stage, just to see how things develop a week or so down the line. But it's likely that something just starts to encroach back from the southwest as we go towards the middle of next week, which may just bring then the risk of strengthening winds and some rain back in off the Atlantic. Some indications stay a bit more optimistic for longer, so we'll keep an eye on how that develops. Stay up to date, of course, every day with your local forecast on our website. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.